There's someone in your life right now who never seems to need anything from you. They don't chase your approval, beg for your attention, or get emotional when you don't respond the way they want. When you're available, they enjoy your company. When you're not, they seem perfectly fine without you. And here's what probably disturbs you most about this person. You respect them more than almost anyone else you know, even though you can't quite explain why. What you're witnessing is one of the most powerful psychological forces in human nature, something that Niccolò Machiavelli understood 5 centuries before. Modern psychology proved him right. The person who appears to need nothing from you has everything you want to give them. The person who seems indifferent to your opinion is the person whose opinion you value most. The person who doesn't chase respect, attention, or validation is drowning in all 3, while everyone else is desperately begging for scraps. You've been taught that caring, trying, and showing how much you want something is the path to getting it. But that's exactly backwards. The more you want something, the less likely you are to get it. The more you care about someone's opinion, the less they value yours. The more you chase respect, the faster it runs away from you. And the more indifferent you become to outcomes you can't control, the more those outcomes seem to naturally flow in your direction. Today, I'm going to reveal why indifference is the secret weapon that the most powerful people use without you realizing it. Why your desperate need for approval and validation is destroying your ability to actually get them. And how you can transform from someone who begs for respect into someone who commands it simply by changing your relationship with wanting itself. Before we unlock the psychological secrets that make indifference irresistible and desperation repulsive, hit that like button if you're tired of chasing things that keep running away from you. And subscribe with notifications on, because what you're about to learn will make you magnetic to everything you've been unsuccessfully trying to attract. Here's the first truth about human psychology that will shatter your understanding of how attraction and respect actually work. People are naturally drawn to what they can't have and naturally repelled by what desperately wants them. This isn't just about romantic relationships, though it applies there too. This is about every form of human value and validation: professional respect, social status, friendship, influence, opportunities, and even money. The moment you appear to need something desperately, you've made it nearly impossible to obtain. Think about this pattern in your own experience. When someone clearly wants your approval more than anything, how do you feel about giving it to them? When someone is obviously trying to impress you, how impressed do you actually feel? When someone is chasing your friendship or attention, how valuable does their company seem to you? If you're honest, you'll recognize that desperation makes people less attractive, not more attractive, regardless of their other qualities. Machiavelli observed this pattern in political power, where leaders who appeared desperate for support consistently lost influence, while leaders who seemed indifferent to whether others followed them naturally attracted loyal followers. He realized that desperation signals weakness and neediness, while indifference signals strength and abundance. People want to align themselves with strength and abundance, not weakness and neediness. But here's what makes this psychological principle so devastating to most people's strategies. We intuitively believe that showing how much we want something will make others more likely to give it to us. We think that if we demonstrate our need clearly enough, people will take pity on us and provide what we're seeking. But psychological reality works in exactly the opposite way. The clearer our need, the less likely others are to meet it. The first principle of Machiavellian indifference is what he would have called emotional independence. This doesn't mean not caring about anything or anyone. It means that your emotional state, self-worth, and life satisfaction don't depend on specific outcomes or other people's responses. When you can be genuinely happy, regardless of whether you get what you want from any particular situation or person, you become infinitely more attractive and influential. Emotional independence works because it signals to others that you have internal resources they don't possess. While they're dependent on external validation, approval, and outcomes for their psychological stability, you appear to have found some secret source of contentment that doesn't require their participation. This makes you seem more psychologically evolved and more valuable as a person to know and associate with. People are naturally curious about and drawn to individuals who seem to possess inner stability and satisfaction that isn't dependent on circumstances. They want to understand how you've achieved this state, and they often want to be around you because your emotional independence feels calming and secure compared to the anxiety and neediness they experience in themselves and others. Emotional independence also makes your choices and responses seem more authentic, because people can see that you're not acting out of desperation or manipulation. When someone knows you don't need their approval to feel good about yourself, they're more likely to trust that your interest in them is genuine rather than strategic, which paradoxically makes them more interested in earning your approval. The second principle is scarcity through selectivity. When you become indifferent to whether any particular person likes you, opportunity becomes available to you, or outcome occurs in your favor, you naturally become more selective about where you invest your time, energy, and attention. This selectivity creates scarcity around your resources that makes them more valuable to others. Scarcity through selectivity works because it demonstrates that you have standards and that meeting those standards is necessary to gain access to what you offer. When someone has to earn your time, attention, or approval rather than receiving it automatically, they value it more highly than they would if it were freely given to everyone. This principle shows up in every area of life where value is determined by availability. The job candidate who seems to have multiple options appears more valuable than the one who desperately needs this particular position. The friend who chooses when and how to spend time with you is more appreciated than the one who's always available whenever you're bored. The romantic partner who maintains their own interests and independence is more attractive than the one who reorganizes their entire life around the relationship. But the selectivity must be based on genuine standards and authentic preferences rather than artificial scarcity created for manipulation purposes. People can sense when someone is genuinely selective because they have rich inner lives and multiple interests, versus when someone is pretending to be selective as a strategy to appear more valuable. The third principle is what Machiavelli understood as power through non-attachment. This involves caring about outcomes and pursuing goals while simultaneously being psychologically prepared for any result, including failure or rejection. Non-attachment allows you to take risks, make bold moves, and pursue ambitious objectives without the desperation that often sabotages people's efforts. Power through non-attachment works because it eliminates the fear-based decision-making that prevents most people from taking appropriate risks or advocating effectively for their interests. When you're emotionally prepared for any outcome, you can negotiate more effectively, take leadership roles more confidently, and pursue opportunities more boldly because you're not paralyzed by the possibility of failure or rejection. This non-attachment also makes you more attractive to others because you appear confident and capable rather than anxious and needy. People are drawn to individuals who seem comfortable with uncertainty and change because these qualities suggest inner strength and adaptability that they admire and want to associate with. Non-attachment doesn't mean not caring about anything or having no preferences. It means holding your goals and desires lightly enough that you can pursue them wholeheartedly without being destroyed if they don't work out as planned. This balance allows you to invest fully in your efforts while maintaining the emotional equilibrium that makes you attractive and effective. The fourth principle is respect through self-respect. When you become indifferent to whether others respect you because you have developed genuine respect for yourself, you naturally begin behaving in ways that command respect from others. Self-respect creates boundaries, standards, and behaviors that signal to others how you expect to be treated. Respect through self-respect works because people take cues from how you treat yourself when determining how they should treat you. If you consistently accept disrespectful behavior, tolerate poor treatment, or compromise your values to gain approval, you're teaching others that disrespecting you has no consequences and might even be rewarded with greater effort from you to please them. But when you have genuine self-respect that doesn't depend on others' validation, you naturally establish and maintain boundaries that preserve your dignity and well-being. You don't argue with people about why they should respect you. You simply don't engage with those who consistently demonstrate that they don't. This behavior pattern trains people to treat you better if they want continued access to your time and attention. Self-respect also makes you more attractive because it demonstrates that you understand your own value and don't need others to convince you of your worth. People are drawn to individuals who seem to know something about themselves that creates inner confidence and security, and they often want to discover what that source of self-knowledge and self-appreciation actually is. The fifth principle is what Machiavelli would have called strategic detachment. This involves maintaining enough psychological distance from outcomes and relationships that you can make decisions based on what actually serves your long-term interests rather than what feels good in the moment or what avoids short-term discomfort. Strategic detachment allows you to say no to requests that don't align with your priorities, end relationships that aren't mutually beneficial, and pursue goals that might involve temporary setbacks or social disapproval. When you're not desperately attached to maintaining every relationship or avoiding every conflict, you can make much more strategic choices about how to invest your resources. This detachment also makes you more reliable and trustworthy, because people can see that you make decisions based on principles and long-term thinking rather than emotional impulses or social pressure. When someone knows that you won't compromise your integrity or abandon your standards to avoid tension or gain approval, they're more likely to respect your judgment and value your consistency. Strategic detachment doesn't mean being cold or uncaring. It means being wise enough to recognize that some relationships, opportunities, and outcomes aren't worth the compromises they would require, and being strong enough to walk away from situations that don't serve your authentic interests, even when walking away is difficult or unpopular. But here's where the psychology of indifference becomes truly sophisticated. It's not about not caring at all, which is just another form of emotional dysfunction. True, Machiavellian indifference is about caring deeply about the right things while being genuinely detached from outcomes you can't control and validation you don't need. The sixth principle is influence through independence. When you develop genuine independence in multiple areas of your life, emotional, financial, social, intellectual, you naturally become more influential because people recognize that you're not trying to manipulate them to meet your needs. Your suggestions and opinions seem more trustworthy because they're not obviously self-serving. Influence through independence works because it eliminates the neediness and agenda-driven behavior that makes people suspicious of others' motives. When someone knows you don't desperately need their approval, cooperation, or resources, they're more likely to trust that your advice and perspective are genuinely intended to be helpful rather than manipulative. This independence also makes you more attractive as a partner, friend, or colleague because people recognize that choosing to be with you is genuinely a choice rather than a dependency relationship. When someone knows you could be fine without them, but choose to include them in your life anyway, they feel more valued and respected than they would if they sensed you needed them to complete yourself. Independence must be genuine rather than performed, because people can usually detect when someone is pretending to be self-sufficient while actually being desperate for validation or support. True independence comes from developing actual skills, resources, and internal stability that make you genuinely capable of thriving regardless of what others choose to do. The seventh principle is what Machiavelli understood as psychological sovereignty. Sit. This involves maintaining control over your own mental and emotional states regardless of how others behave toward you. When you can remain centered and confident even when facing criticism, rejection, or hostility, you demonstrate a form of inner strength that naturally commands respect. Psychological sovereignty works because it shows others that you possess something they desperately want: the ability to maintain inner peace and self-worth, regardless of external circumstances. Most people are controlled by their need for approval, their fear of rejection, or their dependence on specific outcomes. So they're naturally drawn to anyone who seems to have transcended these common forms of psychological slavery. This sovereignty also makes you much more effective in challenging situations, because you can think clearly and make good decisions even under pressure or in the face of opposition. When people see that you don't lose your composure when things don't go your way, they begin to see you as someone with leadership potential and emotional intelligence. Psychological sovereignty requires genuine inner work to develop emotional regulation, self-knowledge, and confidence that doesn't depend on external validation. It's not something you can fake for very long, but when it's authentic, it creates a magnetic presence that attracts respect, opportunities, and high-quality relationships. The eighth principle is value creation through authenticity. When you become indifferent to whether others approve of who you really are, you can finally stop performing false versions of yourself and start offering your authentic gifts and perspectives. This authenticity often creates much more value for others than any performance could, which naturally generates respect and appreciation. Value creation through authenticity works because most people are starving for genuine connection and honest communication in a world full of performance and pretense. When someone encounters a person who seems comfortable being themselves without apology or explanation, it feels refreshing and valuable in a way that calculated attempts to impress rarely achieve. Authentic value creation also allows you to make unique contributions that no one else can make, because your genuine perspective, experiences, and insights are different from everyone else's. When you stop trying to be what you think others want and start being who you actually are, you often discover that your real self is much more interesting and valuable than any fake version you could create. The indifference required for authenticity means not caring whether your real self is universally accepted or appreciated. Some people will connect with who you really are, and others won't. But this natural selection process leads to much more satisfying relationships and opportunities than trying to appeal to everyone through false personas. The ultimate power of Machiavellian indifference is that it frees you from the psychological chains that keep most people trapped in cycles of seeking validation, fearing rejection, and compromising their authentic interests to gain approval from others. When you develop genuine indifference to outcomes you can't control and opinions that don't matter, you become free to pursue what actually serves your life and values. This freedom naturally makes you more attractive to others because freedom itself is magnetic. People are drawn to individuals who seem to possess qualities they wish they had themselves: confidence, independence, authenticity, and inner peace. When you embody these qualities through genuine indifference to external validation, you become someone that others naturally want to be around, learn from, and associate with. The most successful and respected people often share this quality of strategic indifference. They care deeply about their work, relationships, and goals, but they don't depend on specific outcomes or other people's approval for their sense of self-worth and life satisfaction. This balance allows them to pursue ambitious objectives wholeheartedly while maintaining the emotional equilibrium that makes them effective and attractive. If this exploration of psychological indifference has revealed new ways you could be more effective and attractive in your relationships, career, and personal life, Make sure to like this video and share it with someone who could benefit from understanding these powerful dynamics. And if you want to continue learning about the counterintuitive principles that separate truly influential people from those who are constantly seeking validation, subscribe and turn on notifications because we're just beginning to explore what's possible when you understand how attraction and respect really work. Remember, in a world where everyone is desperately trying to be liked and approved of, the person who doesn't need anyone's permission to feel good about themselves has unlimited power. The choice between chasing respect and commanding it, between needing validation and attracting it naturally, between being controlled by outcomes and being free to pursue them authentically, is always yours to make in every interaction and every relationship throughout your life.